I thank the gentleman. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. I want to say before I introduce today's witnesses that I want to thank my ranking member, Mr. Correa, for making this a bipartisan hearing. This is one of those hearings that doesn't quite frequently happen in Congress. We don't know what the answer is. That is why we're having the hearing. A lot of times, I'm not a lawyer, that the lawyers say don't ask a question unless you know the answer. I'm going to ask questions I don't know the answer to today. And I'm also very appreciative of the witnesses who came here and the ranking member for making this a bipartisan panel. Oftentimes, you get some Republican witnesses and some Democrat witnesses. I don't know your political affiliations, don't need to know them, and that's because we're working for the people here today. And thank you, Mr. Correa, for...
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I think you've just outlined the heavy burden that these witnesses have in educating the committee on where to go from here. Thank you.
And that's a heavy lift to educate congressmen.
I'm going to yield to the chairman the balance of my time.
Thank the gentleman from North Carolina. Dr. Frank, I think you were centering on what might be a solution or an improvement, which was these independent PBMs. You said, you know, there is some hope there. There's consolidation. There's 3 or 4 that are controlling everything, but there's some trying to get into the market. What could we do to make them more competitive, or is there something we could unshackle to make them more competitive?
I think that's a really important question. I think it's one that I've been thinking about a lot. I don't have a great answer. I do.
Give me your best answer.
Well, my
best effort.
Is that the government now, one way or another, is involved in about half the insurance purchases around the country, right? And so there's probably, and I don't know a better way to put it, but there's probably some ways to, as we've done in other areas, like when we started Medicare Part D, is to put our thumb on the scale a little bit to make the market work better. And how exactly to do that, I haven't figured out yet, but I think that given what an important role the government has in procurement of prescription drugs and working through PBMs and PDPs, there may be some ways there to advantage some of these independent entities.
The gentleman's time from North Carolina has expired, which means my time has expired, but I may come back and ask some of the other witnesses the same question, see if you'd be thinking about it. May I
yield to the chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Didn't want to take anything that wasn't mine, but I'll take it. So, you know, what I hear from small mom and pop pharmacists is I'm paying $25 for this drug, and that CVS or the hospital is paying $5 for it. Or I'm filling a prescription, and even before I consider my labor or my employees, I'm filling it for less than they're paying me less than it costs me. What scale would they have to operate at to make money if they are paying more for the drug than they're getting reimbursed? Like, is there any scale that works, Dr. Van Nuys?
Well, no, what you've laid out, there's no scale. You don't make it up on volume. But it is true that if you are larger, you can get better pricing from a wholesaler.
But that doesn't speak, it's not saying that the employees are not working as hard at the small pharmacy, or that I mean, there's no scale at which, when you're paying more than you're getting for the drug, there's no scale at which that works. So there's something, I think, wrong there in the pricing. Maybe these small pharmacies are twice as efficient. Maybe the employees are more motivated, but it's a scale thing, and I think that's a problem. Dr. Lasasso, what's the radical free market solution to this? Just clear out all the underbrush, and what would get rid of all the history? How do we fix this? You got like a minute to solve it all.
Oh, that's all.
From scratch.
Well, boy. I mean, if we're just in the PB, I mean, I guess
I was told you were a free market guy.
Right. So of course, the original sin was allowing for no tax on employer-sponsored health insurance benefits. So that weakens.
I agree with you there.
That weakens the incentives that the payers have to even really think about and push back. Because a lot of what we talked about here today that I think troubles me is that we tend to be ignoring the role of the payers. The payers are the ones sitting there looking at the proposals from multiple vertically integrated or not. They still have choice. If I don't like T-Mobile, I'll go to AT&T, right? So I can't really be ripped off that much, right? Even with the 80% that the 3 vertically integrated insurance chains.
What if Apple owned AT&T?
Sorry.
What if Apple owned AT&T? That's my concern. That might be a better analogy.
Well, yeah, but then I could still go back to T-Mobile.
Okay.
Yeah, but
With
so,
an Android.
So okay, I mean, I don't want to monopolize your time here, but if you want to just scorched earth, yeah, get rid
Okay.
of the.
The original sin was telling employers that they should provide this, and then giving them the government benefit to make that, and then not extending that same benefit to individuals who tried to go out and buy health care. So I agree with you on that. Dr. Frank, or maybe it was Dr. Mattingly, I don't know, one of you was asked about antitrust action, and it didn't seem like there was a clear-cut case here given the existing law. So I don't want to relitigate that question. I want to ask a question, is there one piece of law that we could pass? Since the existing law doesn't seem to be actionable or clearly actionable in this situation, is there a rule that we could pass that would fix this, the anti-competitive nature of it?
Well, I have at least an idea about how you could get rid of some of the, attenuate some of the game playing, the regulatory avoidance. So what you might do there is sort of handle it the way we handle multinationals, which is insist on transfer pricing. That you have transfer pricing rules that somehow reflect something close to fair market value. Because right now, Dr. Van Nuys and I have both made the point that there's a lot of game playing that can be done within that vertical structure to avoid regulations, to avoid...
What is transfer pricing? What do you mean by that?
So transfer pricing is, I'm a PBM and I sell services to the insurance company. Well, if my insurance company is, their profits are regulated, then I'm going to charge them a lot because that's off on the books as a cost, even though it's revenue to the PBM that goes back to the parent company. And so those second set of revenues are not regulated. They're not subject to like a margin regulation in health insurance. And so by doing transfer prices, which insists on constraining what can be done in terms of who can charge the other one what, you eliminate or you reduce the ability to play games to avoid regulation and taxes and things like that.
Okay, 1 minute remaining. Dr. Van Nuys, you had 4 suggestions. If you could implement just one of those in legislation, what would it be?
Transparency.
And what would that look like, transparency? How would we impose it?
So,
Pricing?
so what I want is aggregate benchmarks of average prices at different points in the transaction system. So CMS already publishes a series called the National Average Drug Acquisition Cost, NADAC, that they collect with surveys, and they aggregate it, and they publish it monthly, and anybody can get it. I can get it, you can get it. And that gives us a benchmark to evaluate one particular transaction. That's the transaction between the pharmacy and the wholesaler, the prices between the pharmacy and the wholesaler. I want something like that at the different transactions in the chain. So I want to know what PBMs are charging health plans to settle a claim, what PBMs are paying pharmacies to settle a claim, what PBMs are negotiating with manufacturers. And I want an average benchmark like NADAC, high quality, net.
What would you do with that information? Who would use it?
I think market participants would use it to understand whether the prices that they are being offered by whoever their counterparty is, the PBM, are fair, are reasonable, right? So any of those market participants could use that benchmark. They don't have anything like that now.
All right, thank you very much. My time has expired, and that means we are done with the hearing. I appreciate the indulgence of my ranking member here. Do you want to say anything before we close?
Just, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you very much for handling this committee hearing in a nonpartisan way. I think America is much better off with the information we got today. Barely scratched the surface, but got some work to do, and I want to thank our witnesses for your good testimony today. Much appreciate y'all.
Well, that concludes today's hearing. We thank our witnesses very much.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this important topic. Please share what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Health Bulletin for the latest updates in science and health.